Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today's Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. Our stock was up fractionally. Up like half a penny? I'll take it. Shares about 700,000 in volume today? Not terrible. So our stock was up. That's good. We need to keep it up. I did notice that the former CTO or Chief Technology Officer of Coinbase, right? Coinbase being a very large player in the Bitcoin/crypto industry. This individual evidently is betting something upwards of like $1 million US, I think, that the price of Bitcoin will surpass $1 million per coin like inside of 90 days. And evidently the catalyst for this is the individual's belief that we are on the cusp of some sort of great calamity as it relates to the US financial markets. Now, some people have been paying attention to this a little bit because evidently this same individual made some very compelling arguments as to why a coronavirus would really inflict a lot of harm and damage upon the United States. This was back like when COVID first kind of came into the collective consciousness. Now, COVID's a whole other can of worms we're not going to get into. I want to focus really specifically on Bitcoin, though. Needless to say, if Bitcoin were to reach $1 million per coin, Stronghold Digital Mining, I would expect, would be a lot higher than 67.5, 68 cents a share. So let's see if this pans out. I do think it's kind of relevant only because I do see that it's gaining a little bit of momentum. People in different social media circles are talking about this, so it's thought-provoking. A prediction that I do think is more specific to Stronghold Digital Mining, and one that I want to highlight, is like if you go to the Wall Street Journal or maybe even to Tip Ranks or some of these websites that aggregate the analyst community, right? The Wall Street analyst community and like what their stock price targets are for various companies. If you take a look at Stronghold Digital Mining, I just did this a moment ago on the Wall Street Journal website, and if I recall, the aggregate stock price target, the average, is like $1.33. Give or take a couple pennies. Don't quote me exactly on that, but it's well over $1 a share. So this isn't me saying this, okay? This isn't my personal prediction. This isn't, what I necessarily think the company should be trading at. But I do think it's interesting, or at least certainly thought-provoking, that the average stock price target for Stronghold Digital Mining, as reported on the Wall Street Journal website, is, over $1 a share. I think it was like I said, like about $1.33. So that represents, okay, if let's just keep the math easy. Let's assume we're trading at around 70 cents a share right now. If we, went up about 100%, we'd be at $1.40, more or less in line with this aggregate stock price target. So, okay, let's just kind of run with that for a second. This stock has the potential to practically double in price based on the idea that, hey, people on Wall Street, you can't just have a pulse and a social security number to get a job there, I would hope, right? You have to have some credentials. You need to have some ability, right, to be analytical, to look at the numbers, to really figure things out. So let's just assume for a moment that in aggregate, a stock price target of $1.33, this isn't me making this, a target. This is Wall Street making this target in aggregate. Let's just assume that's accurate, okay? We have like a lot of room to go up in price, okay? And as I've said, we're going to be focusing a lot more on the stock price, okay? Because not only are we in a sort of an existential race, right, to get above $1 a share, lest we run afoul of NASDAQ listing rules, but I think also just from a shareholder frustration perspective, right? I know a lot of us would like to see this darn company stock really start to gain some traction. So if Wall Street feels that this stock should be at about, $1.30, something like that, and we're currently at around, 67 cents, 68 cents a share, I think a very compelling argument could be made that if a person were to buy stock right now, right, say at roughly 67, 68, 69, 70 cents a share, again, if you have any amount of trust in the time, effort, and energy that paid Wall Street professionals put into, the task of coming up with these stock price targets. I mean, looking at it just purely from that perspective, this stock has a lot of potential to potentially double practically. So I think that's a really compelling argument. Hey, Wall Street, I don't want to say they love our stock, okay? But I mean, hey, there are quite a few buy recommendations out there. I mean, that's something to be said. The aggregate stock price target is like $1.30 something. I think that's something that's shareable. I mean, if you're chatting with someone, you're like, hey man, Wall Street thinks this thing should be about double where it's at right now. Again, it's not you saying this. It's not like, hey, I'm just some layman. No, Wall Street, right? Go to the Wall Street Journal. That's the proverbial, Wall Street, Bible of sorts, right? Hey, that's my information source. You type in the SDIG ticker symbol, you go under, I think it's like analyst estimate, something like that, and it's like it's right there, and it shows, hey, Wall Street wants $1.30, right? That's compelling. That's interesting, and I think it's worth sharing. So even if you're somebody who's like, hey, I don't know, Stephen, like you make a lot of compelling arguments, but you're just one guy in the wilderness. Well, okay, let's look at what Wall Street's saying. In aggregate, right? Because, hey, some people might want it to be closer to $2 a share, others $1.50. Some might even say, hey, it's worth 50 cents, right? A lot of different opinions out there, but let's just look at it in aggregate. And let's just assume for a moment there's something to be said for collective wisdom, okay? And if the collective wisdom of Wall Street is, hey, Stronghold Digital Mining, yeah, their shares should be easily, double where they're at right now. Hey, why not share that with other people? I mean, if somebody's on the fence right now, they're like, hey, should I buy shares in this? I kind of like the company. I kind of like the name, kind of like the story, but I don't know, man. Like it's like a freaking penny stock. Well, hey, good news. Wall Street doesn't think it should be a penny stock, right? Wall Street thinks it should be at least over $1 a share. So anyway, that's just something I'm sharing with you because I just looked at it a little while ago and I thought, hey, that's kind of interesting. I might need to think more about incorporating what Wall Street thinks into, some of what I'm saying, because after all, hey, Wall Street, I think their opinion matters in many ways. So I'm looking at this sheet of paper. I created this, late last year. I don't know if that's visible entirely. This sort of summarizes my 120-10 plan for 2023. And I'm bringing this up again simply because, we're still on the hunt for some of this stuff. We really are. $100 million plus in revenue. Now, we did achieve that in 2022, so that's great. Hey, guess what? Let's keep it up, okay? This is a new year. We don't want to necessarily rest on our laurels. I think we're on track to potentially surpass 100 million, but look, hey, our revenue has to be, we have to at least get, roughly $25 million in revenue each quarter. And in Q4 2022, our revenue wasn't quite $25 million. So there's something to be said for at least going for 100 million plus in revenue. $20+ million in adjusted EBITDA. Okay. That to me is a big deal. And I think there's a reasonable chance we could do that this year, assuming we can replicate what we did in Q4 2022 or do better than that. We scored $5.2 million in adjusted EBITDA. Right? Hey, if we could do that each quarter, now in 2023, we'll be over $20 million in adjusted EBITDA. And then the final goal that I set forth was a $10 per share share price, basically, a $10 stock price target. It's hard for me to get excited about, hey man, let's be at $1.50. Okay, even though, yeah, I get it. It's well over 100%, higher than where we are now. But I'm just saying, I want to be aspirational, okay? And I don't mean, hey, after a reverse stock split, suddenly we're at like $8 a share. Now we're really getting close to 10. I'm just saying, hey, it would be great if we could just snap out of the crypto winter and our share price can really start to, not only just our shares, but really the entire Bitcoin mining ecosystem can kind of come back into favor again. See a lot more investor interest in some of these names, including Stronghold Digital Mining. And, hey, a good tide lifts all boats. And the truth is we have a long way to go because we have tremendous potential. We're doing it. We're executing. And it would be awesome, right, to see our share price go to $10 a share. That's aspirational, I get it, but it's hard for me to get excited about saying, hey, my life's goal for this company is to be a 90 cent a share stock price. You see where I'm going with that? So we'll see what happens. How do we achieve our goals? Well, we maximize power plant uptime. That's critical. Need to have the power plants operational because ultimately that's what gives us the ability to arbitrage, right? If grid prices suddenly are pretty high, hey, great, let's sell into the grid. If grid prices happen to be on the lower end and we want to instead use the electricity we're generating to mine Bitcoin, we can do that as well. Now, obviously, we also have the potential to say, hey, let's just curtail the power plant during instances where grid prices are incredibly low, like below our variable cost of power, which is about $30 a megawatt. And let's just import that power from the PJM grid and use it to mine Bitcoin. Point being, let's keep our equipment, okay, want to call it a power plant, data center, whatever it may be, let's just keep it operational. Let's keep that uptime sky high. Minimize fuel/O&M expenses. So yeah, I mean, to the extent that we can kind of keep our costs down, operations and maintenance costs down, our general and administrative costs down, that's awesome, because that's really, really going to be helpful. And then finally, relentless promotion. And that's a big part of what I think we, as shareholders, as co-owners of this business, this is where we step in, right? We can't necessarily have an impact on power plant uptime, nor can we, generally speaking, have an impact on whether or not fuel expenses are going to be contained or O&M expenses are going to be, low. But we do have, I think, a lot of influence over whether or not we can promote our company and our mission, our values, and what we're attempting to do. I like to say popularity beats obscurity. Enthusiastic shareholders is really like a big deal, right? If we're all enthusiastic, that's awesome. And then finally, we have to be very positive and goal-oriented. And I really am attempting to live into that. And I'm inviting you to join me, right? Because it can't just be, one individual, sort of doing this. I think we all collectively have a role to play. So yeah, you're chatting with friends and, somehow the topic of money comes up, the topic of Bitcoin comes up, the topic of Wall Street comes up. I think that's a very natural and easy opportunity to just weave in to that conversation. Hey, it's funny you talk about that because like one of the ways I'm playing the whole thing with Bitcoin is through this really cool company called Stronghold Digital Mining, and then from there you can just kind of go into your little spiel that kind of like advocates for why an individual may want to consider buying shares of this company. Again, you're not telling somebody to buy the stock. You're just saying, hey, this is what I've done. You want to know why I'm enthusiastic? You want to know why I'm excited about, some of my investments? Well, let me tell you about one in particular. It's called Stronghold Digital Mining. So anyway, let's make 2023 the best year yet. And I think we're slowly but surely doing that. And that's essentially what I articulated once again in this little sheet of paper. Again, I'm not sure if it's fully visible there or not, but I'll maybe post a link to it. I think there's a PDF version of it, or at least an image version of it that I'll look up that I can post in the description below, and you can take a closer look at it. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Today was a good day. We closed the day up. All things considered, that's awesome. Okay, stay positive, stay great, and I'll see you tomorrow.